Alright, so this is about the most important story that you'll ever hear in your entire life, so I'm gonna try and tell it as clearly as possible. You see, back when I was in high school, if you wanted to listen to music, there were really only two options that you had, right? The first of which was CDs, and those were already kind of going extinct for the time that it was. Extinct? And the second was this thing called the radio. Now the radio was kind of like Russian roulette with music. It wasn't like Spotify today, for those who are younger and don't know. You didn't really have a choice with what you were going to listen to. And usually you just got a rotation of like 9 or 10 songs that would play every single day that you would just get so sick of. Now one of those songs that would play basically every single day from the radio DJs had this riff right here. Okay, that was a little bit wrong. It was actually funkier, and he played it like this. And believe me when I said that riff played like every single day. And they kept being like, this song is called Get Lucky by Nile Rodgers and Daft Punk. At the time I was like, I don't know who these Daft Punk guys are. I don't know who this Nile Rodgers is. I just know this riff keeps playing and it's pretty funky, but it's not really my style. Now we're gonna go on a time machine run. 5 years go by. At this point, I'm a guitar player. I'm all in. I'm trying to woodshed. Everyone's obsessed with the funk. I get hip to this guitar player who's really killing it on the Instagram scene and on the live scene. His name happens to be Corey Wong. And this guy, I immediately notice, is special. I went from not being a funk guy, just wanting to shred, to just being mesmerized by his playing and his ability to captivate you with just one chord. Playing one chord, super funky, but his timing, his feel, it's almost mathematical, but it still has this innate groove that I just couldn't understand. And in doing so, you always want to look up where these guys got their inspiration from, who taught them how to play. And I found that he was a huge John Frusciante fan, but everywhere I looked about the funk greats, I couldn't withstand the mention of Nile Rodgers. And I was like, where have I heard about this Nile Rodgers guy? Like, has he done anything that I know? Like, who is he? And then I remembered, oh, that's the guy who played this riff. And so I started going down this Nile Rodgers rabbit hole, right? I was like, who is this guy? Really, who is this Nile Rodgers guy? And one of the first songs, like one of the first things that came up is that he used to be in this band called Chic. And his history with Chic goes way far back. I mean, so far back that when he was first starting with the band, he didn't even have dreads. Yeah, that far back, to the 70s. And I found this song called Everybody Dance that immediately captured my ears, and I hadn't heard it before. And I had to be like, hey mom and dad, back in the 70s, did you listen to this disco stuff? Because it's pretty good. Yeah, I legitimately asked them that. First thing I noticed with this and most Chic songs is he's not a shredder, but his groove, much like Corey Wong, is unbelievable. But there's something more that I noticed, and it was the harmony. His understanding of these chords, because these weren't regular chords that you would just put in a pop song. Because Chic is a pop band, they're a funk pop band, but he wasn't just putting these random regular chords that you would find in everyday life. And they seemed even deeper than the chords that I had heard on that Get Lucky song. So I was like, what is he doing? So he starts with these 3 funk chords, right? So that's cool, right? I like the little lick at the end, the da-da-da-da-da-da. But then this dude has the audacity. This man has the literal audacity to do this right here. Right now you might be thinking, Mike, the audacity to do what? Those 3 chords, if you just play the bass line, it's a very chromatic progression. And I don't think most songwriters would ever think to put a chromatic progression like that in a pop song. But upon doing some more research, he actually has done a masterclass where he talks about that song. And he talks about the Chic way, as he calls it, of really disguising chromatic movement, as he says, to make pop music more interesting. It's really genius. You see, because when you think of those chords, right, we have this A flat major 7 chord. And then when I was just listening to the song, I could not figure out what was next. And I even started looking into his hand movements, and I'm like, he's clearly playing this A in the bass. It's not an A7 chord. It's definitely a minor. And I had to even look it up. It's an A minor 7 with a flat 13, or also a sharp 5 as you can call it. And I would put all of my lunch money for the entire week and place a bet on the fact that there is no song currently on the Billboard 100 charts that has that chord right there. But he puts it in a pop song. It sounds so smooth. Then moving up 1 fret to this A flat over B flat. I don't know about you, but the first thing I think about, like literally the very first thing I think about when I think about chromatic movement is jazz. And I'm gonna make a bold statement, a very bold statement if I may, lean in a little bit closer. Everybody Dance isn't really a jazz standard. No, he's fitting this stuff into pop music. Bro, enough with the jazz talk. This isn't the B movie. But it goes back to that Chic way that he was talking about. Make it all complicated, but make it sound really simple. And I think that's what makes Nile Rodgers stand out so much. Oh, and by the way, he keeps those notes going at 130 beats per minute, straight 16th notes while keeping perfect time the entire time and still keeping the feel. It's absolutely unreal. To give you some more context on just how big this is, 500 million albums sold, 75 million singles. This is not just a guitar player. This is a literal legend of the instrument with his hit maker. And I think when I think a lot about guitarists, I think about like the different note choices they use over specific harmony. But with Nile Rodgers, it's the harmony itself. It's the way that he crafts these different chord progressions that make songs like Everybody Dance so memorable and that make his playing so recognizable even in a pop context. It's literally brilliant what this man is able to do with his guitar, not just as a part of Chic, but as a part of like pop music history over the last 50 years. Just watching him as a funk player is a literal privilege, and seeing like all the guys who he's been able to inspire over the years, you can't understate this guy's importance in the history of like pop music and funk guitar in general. But I want to know, what's your favorite Nile Rodgers song? What is the one where immediately 1 second in on the first note you can recognize it and you're already bopping your head? Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Breaking down Nile Rodgers, legitimately one of my favorite guitar players of all time, and just like being able to see like just how funky he is, especially with a song like Everybody Dance, is a privilege. Tones today, I don't have a hit maker Nile Rodgers strat, but I do have an American Pro 2. Going through the Princeton, which sounds incredible. They're both available at Sweetwater. Make sure to check out the links in the description if you want to know more about that. It's one of the best ways to support the channel if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of the tones that I got in this video or the specifics behind them, make sure to check out those links. If you had a good time, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, and most important of all, like most important, have a great day. Freak out! The Chic.